Welcome back. You here with Goldberg. Today I'll be talking about what I plan to do as I enter my 30s. There's been a number of these sorts of videos going around the last 5 or 6 months. What to focus on if you are in your 20s. This is not going to be such a segment. The most valuable advice I would say if you are in your 20s is take as many social and travel opportunities as possible, excluding getting inside a remote controlled submarine. That's probably not a bad idea. But don't be afraid to go to social functions. Don't be too restricted by, oh, I've got to be a minimalist, because oftentimes that happens, whether folks were raised with an ultra frugal, obsessive mindset by their parents or being too sheltered. Perhaps they got involved with the manosphere and they have this bunkerization mentality. Get cloistered in some rural area, wait for the collapse, don't associate with people because the cities are all bad, colleges are all degenerate. Yes and no. I would argue, even if you don't have the money to attend university or you don't feel it's worthwhile, still consider working in a large city for a couple of years, travel considerably, or go and get a job on a cruise ship. Something that's going to require you to get outside of your comfort zone, become more independent, because far too many men are still stuck on the nipple, as it were, of their parents throughout their 20s, living at home or living too close by, being overly reliant, spending a lot of time on video games, which I'm not hating on gaming, but at times you got to say, what do you really get out of it? What memories are you generating from video games? I'm sure there's some, but I don't think it's enough to make it the mainstay. Regardless, continuing forward, what do I plan on doing as it relates to my 30s? Well, continue looks maxing. I'm not going to re-up all the stuff that was in the How to Age Better video, but obviously taking care of your appearance, taking care of your hair, eating properly, working out. I'm developing a pretty good cut form, but I would like to get a little bulkier, and that's going to require a combination of fasting and just better dieting overall. Certainly doable, and I need to have a better schedule. I need to be getting more consistent sleep. That's another goal. I've been topsy-turvy since about 2018, and that needs to be rectified in a significant way. Where publishing is concerned, I'm in the process of retiring some of the older content, refining certain historical texts, adding more resources, changing some things stylistically. Like, for instance, I'm currently doing the Black Pill book. With the Italy book, I've actually read a lot more into it the last 6, 7 months, especially from left-wing authors, and they've been confirming what I said. So it's a good thing to see that you're not being a shill if you're actually getting this from people who are extremely hostile to that individual or that whole, time in history. What remains then is to complete the Care Bear book as well as the one on Germany. And I'm not certain when it comes to the Care Bear title if I should put it on Amazon, as I might get entirely nuked. Maybe it should be a free PDF or possibly on lulu.com. I'll have to traverse that bridge when I reach it. In any case, I can begin pivoting towards fiction, which I've somewhat neglected over the last several years. And that's easier to do. Less extensive research. I've been reading these books 6, 7, 800 pages, taking notes. It is enjoyable to a certain extent, but it's also a massive time sink, and I'm trying to move away from that to some degree or the other. Now, I might still run a blog, have a Twitter handle where I comment on current events, but I'm not going to link it to this channel, as I'm trying to shake off some of the more overzealous psychopaths that have congregated over the years. Just be nice to have a fresh start and a means of disseminating future fiction that I might write or whatnot to a different audience. With that all being said, the goal is in the next 6 to 8 months, garner additional experience, maybe secure a further IT cert, security related, and then grab some kind of gig overseas, either East Asia, preferably Europe. That's what I'm shooting for. But as opposed to teaching English as a foreign language, which is fine, but you have a lower income, with IT you make a considerable amount, and due to the tax regime, you can send a lot of it back home without facing the levy. So I could pay off my house in a year and some change easily, or maybe I'll sell the house before I leave. I don't know if I want to keep being responsible for it. Beyond that, you're just stacking Bitcoin, dividend funds, Fundrise, all that. And at the same time, you can live in Europe well. You can have a car, you can have a flat, as they call it, that actually has AC and heating. I know those are foreign concepts to many Europeans, just like deodorant is a foreign concept to Frenchmen and women. What can you say? It's a weird dynamic. The benefit of Europe is that you're centrally located, so you can puddle jump, explore the rest of the continent, obviously, maybe North Africa. Certainly, coastal Turkey is beautiful, and that's where the more aesthetically pleasing Turks reside. You stay away from the curry cells, obviously. You could go down to maybe Ethiopia. I'll probably stay out of the Middle East otherwise because it's not in the best shape right now. Even if you want to go to Asia, it's not insurmountable. And then you have a healthier dating environment in Europe. Hypergamy is there, but it's not nearly as robust as we see in the United States. So you can have a normie life that you might have experienced in the 90s or early 2000s in the US. Plus, even with a long distance relationship, it's more viable. If I'm in one country and I meet a chick in Latin Europe, yeah, I know you guys hate that term. I don't really care. An inter-European flight's like 70 or 80 euros in many cases. So you can have her fly in for a long weekend or you go there, and it's not going to be forever and a day. In the United States, if you meet a girl in another state, you're talking about a $400 round trip flying, and that's not including your transportation. Even if she's 70 or 80 miles away on a dating app, doesn't sound too bad, but because of the infrastructure layouts, the lack of decent monorails or train systems, the way the bridges are laid down, you're talking about 2 hours one way. So you want to go out for coffee, it's a 4 hour round trip because a lot of these chicks, as much as they'll say, "Oh, I want to travel," God forbid they have to drive even an hour to meet someone. That's like, "Oh, we're not doing that." So yeah, it would just be a superior environment. I think the United States is great in terms of you can make money, even though you pay a lot of taxes. Your laws are better as far as not being forced to do mandate stuff. But beyond that, it's horrible for social life and it's horrible for romance. We're too fixated with this Anglo biatch set of conditions. I'll talk about that in another video because it's really a separate subject, even though it does collide with other aspects of existence. It may well happen that after a few years in Europe, I choose to relocate and do something similar in East Asia. The main reason why that region is not the top of my list is because, honestly, I don't care for their food. I like South Asian cuisine. East Asian, there are too many items that should have remained under the sea. I just don't like seafood, but Asian girls, they're cute. They're all right. I'm not big into the simping for them. I don't understand why guys are obsessive, but I guess they're a little bit more feminine than what you see on average. That being said, I would like to experience the Philippines and see where women, kind of like in the DR, they cater to you all the time. I don't really care if it's, oh, that's because of passport money. It doesn't matter to me. It's just that'd be nice. It'd be a change of pace. You'd see stuff that you don't come across too often in the Western world. And perhaps as I enter my 40s, I'll resettle in the United States, maybe Texas, something like that. Obviously, there's plenty of things that could interfere with this soy mandates, war, whatnot. But I also don't want to be too quick to get into that manosphere mindset where you're waiting for this collapse and then you postpone your entire life because of it.
Oh, yeah? What about a trad wife? What about her?
Well, this is a question that always seems to come to the top and relates once more to the Anglo-Biatch thesis, which I'll probably have to contend with elsewhere. A lot of dudes, as I've noted, have this obsession with the same type of life that their grandfather did. And they assume 9 to 5, go home to this woman who's going to love you till the rest of your life is complete, and you'll hang out with the kids. That's perfectly acceptable. It might occur if I found someone the next year, I would have a different decision. The point is that I just don't really look forward to being at the beck and call of someone for 20 or 30 years. So if I were to encounter maybe some chick in Eastern Europe and you have a couple kids, you support them, You visit a few times a month. Obviously, you have technology, so you can video chat or whatever. Traveling there between trains and airplanes would not be insurmountable. I think that might be the route I take. It's not ideal, but then again, you have some of these immigrant kids, they don't see their parents or siblings for years because of the way visas function. I'm just saying, too many folks have this mentality that's derived from the puritanical, idealized woman, the frontier privilege, the shortage of European women as you're doing westward expansion or into the New World, that has many of them believe that's the end all, is finding that chick and then everything falls into place. And if that's what you need, it's okay. If you like the stability of being able to come home and just work and do what this woman says, it's fine. Me personally, I like the idea to some extent of living in a cosmopolitan fashion. After all, I'm a member of the tribe. I don't want to just, tucker down for the long haul because it just seems boring to me. There's a lot of the world out there. There's a lot of stuff to experience, people to meet. I don't want to restrict myself to just go off and live in the country and wait for the end times. That might be a great option for other people, but for me, it just doesn't jive well. So I'll certainly be open to the possibility. Once I have a more sane schedule, I'm going to try to go back to attending a church, either probably Eastern Rite Catholic or some kind of Orthodox, maybe. I have my doubts and my skepticism, but I don't think it's going to be unhealthy to belong to that body just on a personal basis. Another recurrent question is that of politics and whether you want to get involved. My short answer is no, probably not. Look at the travesty in the House of Representatives the last several weeks. They're making asses of themselves over a symbolic position, the speakership. Without the support of his conference, he can't do much. So whether it's a rhino or a MAGA Republican, not a whole lot's going to change. It's just showmanship for low IQ people who want to feel that they're still being represented. And that's the problem. You run for office, you have to appeal to these low IQ types because they're not going to be able to follow anything more complicated. Do you want to die on that hill? You have to ask, is your life worth it? Is being subjected to all these stupid ethical guidelines and restrictions, is that a good thing to pursue? I'm not entirely convinced. One of the biggest mistakes Western Civ made is persuading the random idiot on the street that he has rights and is sanctified, and he needs to not just be able to speak, but compel others to hear him. You've heard that whole saying, I may not agree with what you say, but I will defend to death your right to say it. No, you won't because you're a coward, number one. And number two, why would I personally want to get my head blown off for the rights of some imbecile? I mean, think about it for a second, because I used to have that view. Yeah, you got to fight and die for the Constitution. Hell no. That's a terrible way to go out, in my opinion. Because you have these types, especially on the internet, they spurg out, they demonstrate their autismos, and you'll just say, okay, you're a despicable human being. You're not nice to be around. You can't be interacted with in a civil fashion. So you're like, thanks. All right, have a nice day. And they respond, violating my free speech. Can't handle the truth. I'm going to create 10 alt accounts. And you respond, no, it's not your free speech. It's that you're a dumbass. But unfortunately, we must contend with this. And I'm not the biggest defender of all this nonsense. To be perfectly real, I would take a good chunk of the PUAs, the TradCons, the Rage Pill MGTOWs, the Sissy Black Manospherians, the Wignats. I would put them in forced labor camps. That way they would be secure. They would know where their next meal's coming from. They'd have a structured existence, no internet access, so they don't have to always be outraged by something. We could make the motto of the camp, Arbeit macht no Soyo, and it would solve a lot of problems in society. But that's the whole issue. You're always dealing with that onslaught of the low IQ clown that thinks that he's actually very righteous and needs to be heard. It's just, what's the point, dude? Ultimately, you got to decide how you want your life to be to some extent. I would just like to avoid these people in future. I just want nothing to do with them. I don't care about how much you have clout, but you have clout because a lot of these morons are the ones that give you clout. And it's like, whatever. So, yeah, those are my thoughts as far as what I'll try to do in my 30s. We'll see if I'm successful or I get derailed by one thing or the other. I'd be curious to know where you guys are in life, what your plans are. If you're just more about the fighting for the country or you want to just live life and enjoy yourself.